using keeping commingling personal and business expenses in the P&L. Look, I get it. As a small business owner, I founded two companies. We all take advantage of the tax code for vehicles, travel expenses, etc. When your business gets overloaded with non-operating business expenses and even revenues, it just makes a muddy picture of a probably a very good business. So to the extent you can limit what is being recorded as expenses and revenues that are non-operating can save a lot of headaches, and it just gives more credibility into the financials of the wonderful company you've probably built.
Do you have like an egregious case that you've seen? Like, guy, I can't believe you did this.
I mean, I've seen everything. I've seen a vacation of like $1 million, multiple family vacations, close to 30 family relatives on the payroll who were not involved with the business. Like, you name it, businesses to take advantage of some of the tax codes, whether, putting the legality, aside, they want to reduce net income. Um, so those are just a few top of mind.
And that's the hard part is like you want to reduce net income, but then when you go to sell, you want to maximize net income. And so it's like, well, unless you got some crazy SaaS play where, it's trading on some kind of different multiple, you know, when you go to sell, if your net income is really low, it's hard to then justify over and over and over and over and over again how this is unique and it's $1 million vacation, it's this and that. It's like, well, what other skeletons might there be? It starts adding that doubt into the equation. So it sucks, but it's actually better to do it the best way early on so that when you go to sell, millions of dollars can come your way instead of losing that money because you can't sell, you struggle to sell, or you sell for a lot less.
Yeah, and it's such a dilemma that if I, putting myself in the shoes of the seller, you can make a case for both. Well, I could save taxes today. I'll take the quick win. I'll figure out how to maximize value later on. And, depending on where you are in life and your business, that might make sense. Uh, but here's a tip for those businesses that may fall within this SBA range. So if you have a business that is enterprise value of 5 million or less, the SBA is going to look at your tax returns, and they look very negatively if they see things that if they identify creative ways to reduce your taxable income. I'll leave it at that. Um, I've seen banks walk away from businesses that are very profitable and solid because they've had too many creative tax strategies, which are really not business related. So if you're looking to go to market for that type of business, try to do clean tax returns for at least 3 to 5 years before you want to sell.
Yeah, and that was my next question is when you're doing a Q of E, not one light, just a normal Q of E, how far back are you going? 3, 5 years?
Typically, it's 3 years. As we think about we getting further away from the COVID timeframe, which is such a unique element in deal making, 5 years is probably justifiable. Um, it depends on really the risk level and how much of an analysis the buyer or the sponsor wants to conduct.
Yeah, I remember post COVID talking to owners and they kind of had their 2020 year, their 2021 year, and then 22 was a lot different than 20 and 21, good or bad, depending on what COVID did to them. But then 22 was a lot different. Like, well, 20 and 21 are different. Now, to your point, though, we're about to be 26. And so you are starting to see that kind of level out and businesses mature into the new environment. But then, of course, you have, the tariff stuff, which impacts some companies and some companies it didn't. And so, how do you evaluate if you're talking to an owner? Obviously, put COVID to the side, but like tariff news and stuff like that. How much does those changes to the economy come into this QB process?
Yeah, and there's all great questions and challenges with economic conditions that owners will ask me about. Ultimately, when you're going to market and you're doing a QV or you're working with a bank, you want to solicit prospective buyers and get excited about your business. But you also want to address the challenges with your business. It's not all painting that red rosy picture. Looks good and it's great, which for marketing materials. But if you don't uh, acknowledge some of the challenges of your business, a buyer is going to find those in the financials. So just getting ahead of it, and if you had tariff issues or tariff challenges, just acknowledge them, and then being able to articulate, here's what we did about it, you know, and then show the risk mitigated. Like, we've resolved the tariffs, it's no longer a threat. That gains a lot of credibility in the eyes of the buyer.
Yeah. Well, and it's weird because the M&A process is one that requires you to be really open and also really close, right? You don't want all your employees to know, maybe your vendors. You don't want them to know that you're considering an exit, but to the buyer, you have to be really open. And so it's kind of this game of I've got to disclose all this stuff to some people, and to some people, I can't tell them anything. And that becomes a very tight line to walk, and owners get nervous about it. I understand. But it's just how the game plays because you don't want your employees to think that you're belling ship and walking out the door and they're going to be left without a job. You want them to stay, and so it becomes this very tough game. And so the Q of E, as you're talking to this process, that's part of that process. Like, man, you've got to show everything here, and the more you can show it, the better, the more accurately you can, the cleaner you can, the less likely you will need to involve employees earlier than you have to, right? Because if it's a real mess and you got to get employees help for whatever reason because you did something, you might tip your hand, and you don't want to tip your hand because this might not be the buyer for you. And so it's a process of, to your point about cleaning stuff up and doing it the right way and trying to walk that line the best you can. It also plays into this confidentiality that concern I think that owners have is that the better, the cleaner things are, the easier the story is to tell.
Yeah, it's deal making is very much it's a story. It's a story about your business. It's a story of how it started, what is the culture like, and really it's to solicit bids and get buyers excited. To answer your question on confidentiality, this is something small business owners will struggle with because they have key men who are non-equity, so they don't own the business, but they have been with them. Some of the S&B owners I've worked with, they call them like the journeymen. Like they've had employees who've worked for them for 20 years, 25 years, and the business is 30 years old. So they look at them like family, um, but they have to keep their cards close to their chest. So it's a very stressful time for sellers and even buyers, since there's potentially multiple millions of dollars on the line. So just being open and leveraging a competent M&A team can solve a lot of headaches. The folks that struggle a lot are those who are trying to learn this and DIY a lot of this process, and it just doesn't end well. You can certainly do it if you're a buyer or a seller, but there's a reason why successful private equity groups, they leverage the best and brightest because they focus on their strengths and they hire people around them for other strengths.
Well, and I had a conversation with a PE group one time, and we're trying to do some buy side work for them. And they said, actually, we don't like going to owners directly because those are usually not as well set up to exit. Like, it's a bigger pain in the butt to go through this process with them. And so it sounds counterintuitive. You might think, I want to deal directly with PE, but sometimes PE will pay you more because they know that they're getting a better deal, which is weird, but that's how this game works.
It does, yeah. And there's, depending on the buyer, if it's a self-funded searcher, if it's a independent sponsor, or a traditional middle market equity group, they will have certain buy boxes which are typically very different. They run different processes. They structure deals differently. Again, it's pointing back to, like, who are your deal makers, who's on your deal team, and what kind of experiences have they encountered, for better or for worse. All of it is leverage and knowledge you can use for your deal.
No, exactly. Okay, so if you're a seller, you're listening to this, you go, okay, why should I come hear Patrick talk at this Exit Ready Intensive on, I think you're on the 27th we have you set for, right? Is that right? or the third, was it 27th? I think we have. Yeah. Okay. So what are they going to learn from you on that day?
Yeah, so for sellers, if you're looking to sell your business and basically maximize your value, you're going to learn when to go to market, what a Q of E looks like, and really from a dollars and cents standpoint, why you should pay someone to do it. We're going to break down ROIs of a QOE, um, the process, questions, how to strategically align yourself, and then what to expect from prospective buyers when this process kicks off. And ultimately, the goal is to maximize value, reduce headaches during this stressful time. So, really excited about it.
I am too, and I think that there's so much advice for buyers, and I don't like playing the us versus them game because this is a negotiation. But the advice for buyers is how to find the best deal, and the best deal is a good deal, but also to get the value where you want it at, right? So if you're a seller, you got to understand how to make sure that you're positioning yourself the same way. And there's a ton of stuff out there for buyers on like how to do this, how to do this, the ETA space, as you mentioned. If you're a seller and you're not familiar with how to be ready for those questions and present your business, then you're going to attract a lower tier seller, which is going to hurt the valuation and potentially leave, as you said, millions of dollars on the table. And you don't want to do that. Like, why would you want to do that? Because, as Josh Lowenthal mentioned, you're probably going to do this once. We see these serial entrepreneurs who sell 6, 7 businesses. Okay, that's probably not you. But then, if it is going to be you, you got to wait 5 years with a non-compete. So 5 years is a long time. So if you think you're going to do it again, you're on the hook for 5 years, more than likely, just sitting on the sideline, waiting for your chance. And a lot can happen, as we've learned, in 5 years. And so it's a thing to where you really have to get this value right because you're probably going to get one shot at it, and you want to do it the best you can. And so, anyways, I'm looking forward to it. Q of E is an area that I am nowhere near an expert at. I've seen the stuff, obviously, but it's not my area of expertise. And so, the ad backs and the debates over stuff and what counts, what doesn't count. I always love the meme, the EBITDA versus the adjusted EBITDA and stuff like that. And so there's a lot to learn in this space in general from the seller perspective and the buyer perspective as well for the M&A world. So I'm looking forward to hearing you on the 27th.